I started training for an Olympic length triathlon on the 1st of July 2021, and I will be competing in my first one in March of 2022, assuming that COVID doesn't ruin it for me now that South Australia has become Omicron ridden again. RIP COVID. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down almost every aspect that has gone into training for an Olympic length triathlon. I am a regular Joe. I'm not a super fit person, and I wasn't a super fit person getting ready to jump into this challenge. And I wanted to break down all of the elements that went into it in terms of the cost, how much I've spent on all of the gear, what gear I'm using, what my training has looked like, what my diet has looked like. And I'm going to talk a bit about how I'm expecting to perform on the day. But first, let me provide you with some context about the event itself. The race will consist of a swimming component, a riding component, and a running component. The distance for the swim is 1.5 kilometers or just under 1 mile for my non-Australian viewers, and it will take place in a man-made lake as per the outline here. The bike ride is 40 kilometers, which is about 25 miles, and the run is 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles, and it takes place around the same location as the swim. And I won't be going into this event alone. I will be doing it with some of my friends who are much fitter than I am. The ones that are definitely confirmed so far for the race are Tom, Mitch, and Luke, and it's important that I call them out in this video so they don't decide to bitch out leading up to the actual event with some bullshit excuse like, my legs hurt, my tummy hurts, even though that's probably most likely going to be me leading up to the event. All jokes aside, however, it is Luke's fault as to why I am participating in this race. He thought it would be a good idea to add it to my Ulysses bucket list, and although that might not make much sense right now, it's something that you might want to look out for in the future as I'm intending to make a video on the topic. The topic in particular about what a Ulysses bucket list is definitely a topic for another video. Like I just said, I am intending to make that video, and definitely hit that like and subscribe button if you're interested in finding out what it is and why it's kind of roped me into participating in this event originally when I wasn't all that keen. Now, having trained for it for almost 10 months, I'm pretty excited about the race considering I've put the work in, which you're about to find out a bit more about as we continue on in this video. Just understand that if you are interested in learning more about that topic, because of course, how could you ever live without finding out what a Ulysses bucket list is? Like, Google doesn't exist, right? Definitely hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel. I really appreciate the support. Anyway, moving on. And the other aspect regarding my friends who are participating and why I'm calling them out in this video is because I wanted to place a prediction into how I think we will all perform and where we will all place. So definitely stick around for my predictions at the end of this video to see what I think, and I will make an update video once I actually perform the triathlon to give you perspective on if I'm a psychic or not. For now, let's move on to some of the more interesting aspects which goes into preparing for an event like this. Basically, there were three main considerations which needed to go into preparing for an event like this. The first being training so that I could actually do the event on the day, finish the event before the organizers started packing everything up. It's kind of a big deal when you're kind of running against a clock because realistically, they're not going to wait all day for you to finish this event. You need to be at a certain fitness level to be able to participate. It's not something that you can just pick up and jump right into, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute as well. The second thing to consider was my diet, especially getting closer to race day, as it's an important thing to understand. Make sure that you're eating the right things, make sure you're eating enough to sustain training, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a minute. And the third and final thing was the cost. Knowing that I track everything that is relevant to money in my life, this being a finance channel, you knew that I was going to track everything from start to finish, and I really wanted to understand the total cost, how much money I was going to have to put in. I'm going to talk a bit more about that as well in a moment. Okay, let's start with training. Before I actually started training for this event, I could not run more than 3 kilometers without needing to start and stop consistently throughout the entire length of the run. In terms of training for swimming, before I started, I could not swim more than 100 meters without needing to catch my breath, even for like a couple of minutes at times, depending on how hard I was swimming. It took a couple of months to build up to the full 1.5 kilometer distance. So this was 1 to 2 swims a week. It really took time to get to that point. And when I got to that point, I found that I was still changing up my techniques or swimming styles between mainly freestyle and breaststroke. And those two techniques aren't the best to interchange between because breaststroke isn't a fast swimming technique compared to freestyle. And it was something, again, another level of training that was required to build up to doing the entire swim just in freestyle. Riding wasn't too bad. I was able to do the full 40 kilometers without stopping, but I definitely had pockets of the ride where I was struggling hard, and generally at the end of each ride, I was in a lot of pain. So the way I tackled it was to try and get in 2 to 3 runs per week, 2 swims a week, and 1 ride a week at the very beginning, where once I got more confident on the bike, once I got more confident with the swims, I reduced the swims down to about 1 a week because they're pretty time consuming and I hate chlorine. I even hate the ocean, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. But yeah, the overall consensus was 2 to 3 runs a week, 2 swims a week, 1 bike ride a week, and try and be as consistent as possible. And overall, I was pretty consistent for the most part. There were some weeks where I might have missed a bike ride or might have missed a swim, but I went for a swim on average every single week at least once. I performed at least 2 runs every single week over that period of time as well. And generally on the weekends or on a Friday afternoon, I'd go for a bike ride and it wasn't too hard to fit in. Now, honing in a little bit more on the actual activities themselves, the run itself, I wanted to build up to that 10-kilometer mark, which was the first milestone. So I started off with 3 short runs over the original training cycle, and then I moved those runs down to like 2 a week, where I was doing longer runs and I was pushing myself a little bit harder. I built up to that 10-kilometer mark, felt pretty good at it, and then the next challenge was making sure that I could run that 10 kilometers every single time at a pretty comfortable pace. That routine was pretty much sustained for the entire time that I trained since July. So next up, talking about the swim. I was definitely not a strong swimmer by any means, so the way we tackled this was we asked Luke in particular to put us together a program, which he did, and it was excellent. The way it worked was we did some drills at the start of our swims, and we followed that up with some easy, medium, and hard pushes, basically, where we would do a section or a distance that was within that easy, medium, or hard category of effort, and we consistently built up to that 1.5 kilometers over time. And once we got to that point, we tried to sustain that, and then we just eventually could do it pretty easily without having to stop. To do the actual training for this, I swam at the local pool for about 6 months, and during that time, I threw in a few ocean swims, which from an effort point of view, it was fine. However, I do have a fear of deep water. It freaks me out. It terrifies me. So when I was doing those ocean swims, I was definitely freaking out, especially as I saw fish or realized that I was swimming at an angle, definitely getting deeper instead of shallower, which freaked me the hell out. To be honest, actually, now that I think about it, I was pretty terrified in the pool at times because they weren't shallow themselves. I think anyone who's ever been in a pool can imagine when they're a kid maybe, and they imagine there was a crocodile or maybe a shark in the pool and it freaked you out. Think of something like that. Just now me in the ocean, probably a little bit more likely for a shark to be swimming around. Food for thought. And then riding was a once per week activity. I would usually go on weekends and I would just ride somewhere between 20 and 40 kilometers depending on the tracks that I took. And I did that consistently just to build up Ks on the bike. Riding for me wasn't too bad. I won't say that I'm super fast on a bike, but I definitely improved over that time. I definitely felt more confident on the bike, and my power output definitely went up as I trained consistently and got fitter over time. And that's pretty much training. I just wanted to slot in there a big thank you to all of my friends and kind of family who held me accountable for this training. Realistically, a lot of work went into this training schedule and I couldn't have done it without them kind of holding me accountable at times. A massive thank you goes out to Gav and Pridham for pushing me on the bike over these past few months. A big thank you to Caitlin, Luke, and Mitch for pacing me and pushing me in my runs. And a massive thank you to Bo for holding me accountable to my swims, because I really tried to get out of going on them. And every single week you would text me going, let's go for a swim. So thank you very much for all of you for holding me accountable to my training. Okay, so moving on to my diet, which is definitely going to be the shortest part of this video. Pretty much nothing changed for me. I stuck to my 3 meals per day, and that was all I really needed to stick to in order to be able to train and be healthy and fit enough to continue on with my training as time went on. It wasn't until the 1st of January 2022 where I started to take what I was eating a little bit more seriously, and this was mainly to lead up to the event, where I started eating 2 pieces of toast for breakfast with maybe a ham and cheese omelette if I felt like it every single morning. For lunch it was pretty straightforward as well. It was a salad and some chicken, pretty much just cooked in a pan, and then for dinner it was rice, a piece of red meat, some potatoes potentially just to get some carbs in me at the end of the day, make me a bit sleepy so I passed out at night. And that essentially consisted of my main diet for the lead up to the actual event. The one other thing I did other than drinking nothing but water was to drink 1 coffee at the start of every single day. This was important to do because I wanted to make sure that my bowel movements on the day were excellent. I wanted to wake up, drink a coffee, go into muscle memory, and take a shit without having to worry about shitting myself like some marathon runners do in the actual event when I'm performing and racing, trying to actually beat my friends. I didn't want to have a stitch. I didn't want to think that I was uncomfortable on the bike and have to actually go to the toilet. I wanted to make sure that this was not going to be an issue, because it's quite common in the racing world, especially for people who run marathons, do bigger triathlons, maybe ultra marathons. Something to consider, and something I considered. It might have been a bit overkill, but we'll see if it works come March of 2022. And when I tell you my update, I'm sure I'll have an update on this very specific component of or piece of information, because I think it is important to consider, especially if it's going to ruin your race. Who the hell wants to have their race ruined by needing to go to the toilet? And I think it's important to put in the video as well. It might be a little bit embarrassing, but who cares at the end of the day? I think the main thing to conclude the diet component of this video is to understand that I reduced my alcohol consumption greatly. I'm not a big drinker. I never have been. I talk about this on my channel a little bit here and there, but it's something that I was actively being conscious about, especially when I was in environments where it would be acceptable to drink. I made the effort not to drink alcohol because I didn't want to put my health at risk for this event. While I was training, alcohol was definitely something that was not on my mind. Okay, and finally, what gear did I need to purchase? What did I buy secondhand or brand new? What did I get away with what I already had? How much did it cost me for everything? Let's break it down. So I'm gonna get the worst one out of the way to begin with, and it's that I bought a tri-suit. And look, I look ridiculous in it. I look completely stupid in it. I do not like the idea of wearing one of these things, but it's kind of important for the actual race, considering you don't want to be spending hours of your day getting changed between each event. This is an all-in-one suit. So there you go, make your jokes, Photoshop me into whatever Christmas cards you want. That is me in a tri-suit. So to date, I have spent $3,000 AUD to participate in this event. And like I said, I'm gonna break down some of the aspects of it so you can determine whether I did this on the cheap or if it was quite expensive. The main thing to understand is out of all the things I bought, I kind of grouped them into 4 main categories, being bike, ride, swim, yep. And then the 4th category was consumables, maintenance, and any training costs. I kind of grouped them all together because they were the things that let me train. They were the things that allowed me to use facilities and things like that, things that needed to be included in that breakdown, but they didn't specifically tie into things like the run, the ride, or the swim. For the swim, I needed to purchase things like a pair of goggles. I bought a swim pass to be able to do laps in the pool, and I bought some swim shorts, which definitely made it a hell of a lot easier to move in the water compared to the heavier, thicker shorts that I was wearing when I first started. Altogether, this cost me about $300 just for this 6-month period or 7-month period leading up to me going into the final stages of my training. But all of them have been good purchases, highly recommend for convenience and also comfort during training. For the bike ride, it included things like what I'm wearing right now, being riding glasses. I had to buy maintenance tools, things like a pump for my bike and a helmet for safety, because you know, safety first, right? And this also includes the bike, which you see right in front of you, right here. This basically was secondhand, which was a cheap purchase. I spent about $200 on the bike and a carton of beer from a friend. And then I spent about $600 getting everything all nice and neat and tidy again, because the whole thing basically had to be replaced. I'm talking all of the cables, the tires, the grips, everything kind of needed some attention, a little bit of love, and that kind of bumped up that cost a bit. But when you compare it overall to what my friends spent, it kind of was cheap, which all together with all of my bike equipment, it was about $1,500, which I've been pretty happy with the use I've gotten out of it. And if you compare it to what some people spend on events like these, it was nothing in comparison. For the run, I bought some new activewear. I bought some actual padded running socks, which definitely were a good purchase. And then I bought my tri-suit and this Garmin, which was going to be used for all 3 types of events. Like I've used the Garmin for the swim and the bike rides, but realistically, I've mainly used it for my run, and I've used it to learn how to pace myself, because it's a really useful piece of equipment where I can definitely see my improvement. I can track my runs, and it's something that I definitely don't regret purchasing. I've left a link down in the description below if you are interested in picking one up yourself. It's a Garmin 9454 runner. Moving on from that, it cost me about $850 to service all of the running gear and I had some components like my shoes before I went into it. It would have cost more if I needed to buy new ones, which I know some people have before, and they can be pretty pricey themselves. Now, in terms of consumables and ancillary costs, I'm talking about things like gels, which were used to keep my energy levels up during the actual race itself, plus all of the big intense training that I've been doing. The other things that definitely were taken into consideration for ancillary and consumable costs would have been any types of physio that I had to go and see, which I had to go a couple of times for my left knee. It started playing up a bit, which added into the cost of recovery, I would say. And then the actual cost to participate in the triathlon itself. And all up, roughly, I've spent about $200 on that. So that's roughly where I've gotten the $3,000 mark from. It's not too far off when you add up all three of those sections plus the ancillary costs. Pretty much that's a full-on training regime with budget gear, but gear that has performed really well and is going to allow me to do this race with not ease, but I'm definitely going to get through it. I'm not going to worry too much about my bike having a mechanical failure because overall it's a functioning bike. I just probably won't be shaving off heaps of time when racing against some of the others who have some more expensive equipment. To summarize the cost aspect to participate in this event, I don't think I've spent all that much money on the actual event itself, and all of the gear that I bought I'll be able to use into the future as well. I don't think they're wasted money. Keep in mind that people will spend tens of thousands of dollars on things like this. Like I know people with a $10,000 bike. Mine cost $1,000, and that's including all of the additions that I've done to it since I purchased it. If you just take the raw cost of it, I spent $200 and paid for a carton of beer because I knew someone that wanted to get rid of it, and I fit the size there. It was a good size bike for me. The other aspect of it is I looked for opportunities. So like the Garmin here, they retail for $1,000 Australian. I got it for $500. I got it for half price because I found a way. I found discounts. I got it on sale. I looked for those opportunities with the things that I was purchasing as well, and it worked out pretty nicely. So just understand that some people definitely can blow out their budgets and they can spend a lot of money to perform in these events. But I think with the $3,000 across all three events, I didn't spend that much money in the long run, and it would have been well worth it over the past 6 months as well, considering I am the fittest and mentally strongest that I have ever been in my life, which I'm going to talk about in a moment as well. And that leads me into the conclusion for today's video. I wanted to kind of summarize and talk about what I've actually learned going through this entire journey, because it's not something that most people would just have assumed knowledge of how to jump straight into training for an Olympic length triathlon. It's not going to be an easy event by any means. The first thing that I think is worth mentioning is that I put my gym membership on hold. So I trained weights for the better half of the past decade, where I've been pretty consistent. I've gone pretty much 5 to 7 days a week consistently for a decade. And for the first time where I kind of wanted to just go hard into this type of training, more cardio-based training, I put my gym membership on hold and haven't gone and done a weight session since the 1st of July, 2021. I'll go back once I do this event, considering or picturing me not wanting to continue going into more triathlons and things like that, but who knows, we'll see come March of 2022. I just think it's really important to understand that I haven't been doing weights training whatsoever, and that has not affected me or my ability to actually perform these cardio exercises. Like my legs aren't suffering because I'm on the bike. I'm definitely still giving them the workout that they deserve. Leading on from that as well, going back to where I was talking about my mental health and how I'm feeling like a lot better in my own skin, is something interesting as well. Like over the past 10 years training at the gym, I've never really felt like at mentally ease. Like I feel accomplished at the end of a workout, but I felt like I was being complacent or lazy with my workouts. Whereas kind of changing over to this cardio based exercise for a change, it's changed my whole mentality because it's not something I'm used to. And I really like the ability to track everything in a real easy way. Like my runs, seeing that I can run further and at a faster pace has been a massive mental boost for myself. I don't really know why, but it's just how I feel. And I think it's worth mentioning for anyone who's ever thinking about doing cardio versus weight training or mixing the two. Cardio really has helped me mentally, something that I really thought would be worth mentioning. Like I said, I've lost about 8 kilos, which was intended. I wanted to lose some weight, and through cardio training, like through just raw sweating and eating better in general, I've been able to lose that weight pretty easily. It hasn't been all that difficult other than being consistent with my training, and I'm definitely sleeping better. something that I wasn't getting from the gym. And it was probably because I wasn't pushing myself hard enough. But when I was at the gym, I wasn't sleeping great. It wasn't helping me at nighttime, whereas cardio training is just, it wears me out. I'm exhausted by the end of the day. I'm hopping into bed and I'm falling asleep within 5 minutes, which was something I had not experienced prior to starting this type of training. And the other aspect of how I feel as well is I'm much lighter on my feet. When I go for runs and things like that, I felt really heavy. Like I felt like my skin was real droopy when I first started, whereas now my chest is up when I'm running. I'm trying to, like, I feel better in general. It's really weird how you notice these changes, especially within a very short period of time. But now, having gotten into this training, being able to perform at this level, I'm feeling like really, really good on my feet, which is a massive positive for me because it was something that I wanted to feel. I remember when I was in high school, I was really fit and young, and I just felt great running in and doing exercise like that. Whereas I'm 27 now, training for these types of exercises was a lot harder at the beginning, whereas now having gone through that initial hard yards, I'm feeling a lot better on my feet. Again, really something I wanted to mention in today's video. Another thing to definitely take note of is that a lot of people don't understand the amount of work and training that goes into getting ready for an event like this. It is not easy. It's something that I thought I'd be okay just getting away with one run a week when I first started thinking about participating in the event. And it got to this point where I went, okay, like I really need to commit for like a 10-month period every single day, almost doing some piece of exercise to be able to get ready for this actual event. And it's something that I think if you're someone who isn't willing to do that or doesn't have the time to commit to it, it's going to be really difficult. I can assure you that you won't finish the event unless like you're just really, really naturally fit, which generally doesn't happen. I can't stress it enough. There's a lot of work that's going to go into this. You're going to be talking about it a lot. If you have friends that are going to do it with you, it will definitely help because there's a lot to consider. There's a lot to get involved in. And it's something there. It's just not going to be easy to just do off the bat. All right, wrapping up the video now. I'm going to do my hot take on where me and my friends are going to place. And we're going to come back to this video in the future and see if I'm a psychic. Realistically, I think Mitch is going to come first. I'm going to come second. Tom is going to come third. And Luke, being the fittest out of all of us by far, he's going to be disqualified. He is going to have mechanical failure on his bike and he's going to be stuck on the side of the road having a little sook because realistically, if it's going to happen to someone, it's going to happen to him and it's going to be freaking hilarious. So we will see just how psychic I am come race day. To put it in one overarching sentence, the way I'm going to say training for this triathlon has been eye-opening. It has been a fantastic opportunity to see what I'm capable of, to go from someone who's just not ready to participate in an event like this to someone who can now pretty much do the entire thing with confidence. I might not be fast, but I am just set on finishing and crossing that finish line on the day. I am feeling pretty good. My mental health is better. My physical health is better. I generally am excited for the event. Assuming all goes well, you'll be seeing me with a big smile on my face, talking about it in March or just after March when I recover, because my legs are going to be on fire for a couple of weeks, I reckon, leading up to that event and definitely leading out of that event. And that, in a nutshell, is the inside scoop into what goes in to training for a triathlon, involving the cost aspect, the diet aspect, and the actual overall work that has to be put in from a training perspective. I hope that it gave you some insight. I hope it was useful what I talked about today, and that's where I'm pretty much going to leave you. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really helps the channel grow. I really do appreciate the support, and thank you if you've made it this far into the video. With that being said, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good week, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Wish me luck, and bye for now.